Hey guys, welcome back to the Pulling Curls podcast. Today on episode 132, we're talking about what to do when you are real mad. I'm talking like real mad. I'm Hillary Erickson, the curly head behind the Pulling Curls podcast, where we untangle pregnancy, parenting, home, and even travel. We know there's no right answer for every family, but hopefully we can spark some ideas that will work for yours. Life's tangled, just like my hair. Okay, guys, before we get started, you know what really softens my anger? When I see a new review on iTunes. Literally, look there. See how long it's been since a review was put up. I need some. Thank you so much. Today's guest is a parenting and relationship coach. I know her. We're actually step cousins, I believe is our relationship. And I follow her on Instagram, and I just really like some of the things she was talking about. I want to introduce today's guest, Susie Lindberg. Are you overwhelmed by all there is to do around your house? As a new mom, I felt overwhelmed at every turn. Fortunately, I turned to systems to make a change. Whether it's mornings, dinner time, or even just to climb out of a pile of kids' clothes, my course Family Routines can save you. I hold your hand as we smooth out these rough patches, making every day easier so we can more easily handle when your preschooler tells you they can use their urine like a lightsaber. Parenting is always going to be a wild ride. Routines are just your seatbelt, and they can support you. Use coupon code UNTANGLED to save 15% at checkout. Link in the show notes. Hey, Susie, welcome to the Pulling Curls podcast.
Hi, Hillary. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I am super excited to talk about this because boy, oh boy, I was just so mad last night.
Well, I can't wait to hear about why, because we all get mad. That's just like normal parent stuff.
Well, I can't tell you why, because it was about a kid.
Oh, yeah, that's tricky. See, on my one-on-one sessions, we can get into it. But yeah, you're right. Just keep that to yourself.
Suffice it to say, I was really mad. And the friends that I did tell were like, oh yeah, you're mad. Let's first off, like, you get mad when you have toddlers, but a lot of it is tired and just constant, like, doing the same thing over and over. Stop pulling out all the books. Stop,
Right. It's more like frustration than real anger, usually with toddlers.
Or buckling kids in car seats.
Oh, yes. There are some major fights that happen there about buckling kids. In fact, I coached somebody on just that exact thing maybe 3 weeks ago. She just could not. It just was a battle every time. And it's tough. Toddlers are tough.
Yeah. But I will say that you get teenagers bring a whole new level of like, oh my gosh, what were you thinking? Right.
Yes,
so,
I know.
And I think this can apply to everybody, but just know that if you're early in parenthood, your level of anger and your level of joy
It's coming.
are coming for you. Okay. So what do you do when you're just like so mad?
So the first thing you want to do is, I like to say, just slow your roll, slow it down, because when you're really feeling a lot of anger, you're reacting from your amygdala, that lower part of your brain, and your initial tendency is going to be to come out with things you don't really want to be saying. Probably, you're probably going to end up yelling. That's really common. So you really, when you are feeling angry, you really want to parent from your prefrontal cortex. And so you want to slow everything down. Usually your mind is populating with all of these thoughts. Why did he do this? He shouldn't have done this. He knows better than this, right? All of these things are popping into your head, and you just kind of want to slow it down. I actually like to say to my kids, you know what? I love you so much, and I need to think about this. Let me have a few minutes, and let's come back and talk about it, because I know if I talk about it from that place of anger, it's not going to be my best parenting. So that's the first thing. Just slow everything down.
Yeah. Everybody needs a timeout. That's when probably I need the timeout the most.
Exactly. And usually you do need the timeout even more than your kid, because your kid is scared, right? If they can see that you're getting anger, they're feeling fear, their tendency is to kind of freeze up when they feel fear. But from anger, you're going to yell. So if you want to parent in your best way, you just kind of want to take a moment and gather. And then I like to go into my room and I like to just kind of lay down on my bed. This is different for everybody, but just kind of feel the anger, right? It's totally fine to be angry. We are all human beings. We all have all kinds of thoughts that produce human emotions. Anger is totally fine. Sometimes moms feel, or dads too, feel all this guilt and shame over feeling angry at your child. It's fine. Everybody's going to get angry. It's okay. So you want to go in and just let yourself feel the anger. Another thing that's really common is you want to push the anger away. Sometimes that also comes from that guilt and shame. So there are a few different ways to push it away. You can try and think about something else. You can try and distract yourself by doing something else. Something super common, for me at least, is I turn to ice cream or cookies, right? Because your brain is kind of freaking out and it's like, I need a little hit of dopamine. I know how to get that chunky monkey on the way, right? So you want to allow yourself to feel that anger. Because what you'll find is as you sit there and you let yourself feel it and you let all those thoughts come into your head without judging them, you'll just start to feel that anger kind of dissipate and you can come at things from a cleaner, healthier place. The emotion will start to just kind of go away a little bit or soften even. So when you take anger and you try and avoid it, it's kind of like pushing a beach ball down underneath the water. You can push it down. You can get away from that anger for a little while, but eventually you have to move away from that beach ball and it's going to shoot out and it's going to come back even bigger. Whereas if you just let that beach ball of anger sit on the water, it'll just sit there and then it becomes more like a wave, right? Like you'll have waves of anger. You won't just process it and feel that anger and then it'll totally go away. It'll kind of retreat for a little while and then it'll come back but a little softer and then it'll retreat and then it'll come back but a little softer. So that's a lot better thing to do than trying to just avoid the emotion.
Yeah, I just listened to a podcast yesterday and they were talking about how you just need to look at it as like a stream. Your emotions are streams and you're just in it and you're letting them go by you and you're noticing what emotions are there, but you're not like getting super caught up in all those emotions, right?
Yes, I love that analogy. Yeah, we call that being kind of the watcher of your emotions. You kind of almost come out of your body and you're like, oh, anger. This is anger. I'm feeling anger. It's totally okay. I can feel anger, right? You just kind of sit with it and let it be there. So I love that idea of being in a stream. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we need to remember that if anyone else did these things to us, if anyone else had a hissy fit when we were trying to protect their little lives, we'd be really upset, right? Like if your coworker was like, I want to shoot this gun around the office. And you were like, no, you can't shoot a gun around the office. That's not safe, and then they had a hissy fit. You'd be like, you big jerk. Same as the car seat. It is a very frustrating thing because you're trying to do something that's good.
It is. And honestly, the child doesn't understand. And that's something that's so interesting too, right? Whether you're talking about toddlers or whether you're talking about teenagers, they really don't understand why you're angry. They don't understand that the car seat protects them. They don't understand that a curfew could protect them. And there's a reason you want them home before 2 a.m., right? Or whatever it is. So those, when you get angry, not from the anger, but a little while later, that presents some of the best teaching moments to have conversations. And when you have a toddler, right, that's going to be a very different conversation. But especially as they get older, you can do a lot of teaching from those moments. And when I'm angry, I try and remember that. Like, this is going to be a good teaching moment.
Yeah, someday this will be a good teaching moment.
Someday. So the next thing you want to do, right, after you kind of calm down, is you want to notice all of those sentences that are firing around in your head, all of those thoughts. So I'm about to tell you the best news ever. And you may not believe me when I tell you this.
There's somewhere to ship our teenagers that's completely free.
Oh, that would be great news. But no, that's not it. Sometimes I feel like that. Here's the best news ever. Your kid did not make you angry. In fact, your kid cannot make you angry. Your kid may have done something that triggered thoughts in you that made you feel angry, but the kid didn't actually cause that anger. And let me tell you how we know this. Let me give you an example. If you have a child, maybe your 12-year-old, or let's do it a little higher stakes. Maybe 15-year-old comes home and your 15-year-old gives you their report card and you see that child received an 80% in math. One parent might think, man, math is really hard. Way to go, bud. You totally nailed that class. Awesome job. Solid B. That's great. And another parent might be thinking something like, oh my goodness, this is it. They're not going to Harvard now. All my dreams, they're gone. And they might actually get angry about that 80%. Either way, the only thing the kid did is get an 80%, right? But it's our thoughts about what they did that trigger all of that anger. And that is so empowering, because if you can't do anything about what your child did, and we never can, right? We cannot control other people, definitely not our own children, but really not anybody. If your emotions are at the mercy of whatever your kid does, you're going to feel out of control all the time, because you can't control them. When you realize that you have a choice in how you think about everything that they do, you suddenly are the master of your own feelings, and it changes everything. It's really one of the most life-changing things that I've learned as a parent, is that I get to choose how I feel about things. And that doesn't always mean I want to feel happy about it. Sometimes I want to be angry. Sometimes I want to be disappointed, right? It's not about choosing butterflies and rainbows all the time, but it gives me a sense of control, because I can decide how I want to look at different situations.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And when I've listened to a life coach, I think that opened up the reality. I mean, as a nurse, especially, I knew that, especially with pregnancy, some people are excited, some people are devastated. You know, there's a whole range of a positive pregnancy test that people feel. So the same goes for everything else in the world. Yeah,
exactly. So your kid did something, right? And maybe it's something, and that is going to trigger thoughts in you. And just notice those thoughts. So you want to identify all those sentences that are going on in your mind, right? He shouldn't have lied to me. I am raising a delinquent. So I find that these come in like 3 different categories, right? Something has gone wrong thoughts. Those are things like, he should be more respectful. He should be more responsible. He should be able to do this already, right? Like something has gone wrong. It usually starts with should. That's the first type. The second type that usually makes you angry are catastrophizing thoughts. Things like, he's never going to get into the right college. He'll never learn his lesson. He's going to live in my basement till he's 40. She's going to get pregnant, right? All of these kind of thoughts that make things bigger than they necessarily need to be, those really produce anger. And then the third type of thought really starts to combine shame in with that anger. And those thoughts sometimes are the most damaging. There's something wrong with me. I'm the worst mother. I didn't teach him well enough. I didn't do my job right? Because then we feel that anger and we feel shame on top of it, and we cannot parent from anger and shame and do a very good job. So you want to kind of notice, what is it that is really causing my anger? And then just take a look at that thought, right? Pick out one. You're going to probably identify 10 or 20 thoughts. It doesn't really matter which one you pick out. Just pick one of those out and take a look at it and question it, right? You want to play with it in your mind. The first question that I love to ask myself when I feel angry and I identify some thought that's making me feel angry is it true? Is this even true, right? Kids lie, right? So is it really true that kids shouldn't lie? Because they do. And that may feed into your value system, right? I just want to believe kids shouldn't lie, and that's totally fine. But that kids do lie. And so just kind of questioning it, is it true that because my child didn't get into the college I wanted him to go to, that he's going to live in my basement till he's 40? Probably not, right? We have all of these things we think are true that aren't necessarily true. And when we can get rid of that anger a little bit and look at it objectively, we realize that maybe it's not even true. Now let's take a thought that you can't get to, no, this isn't even true, right? Let's go back to that thought of lying. If you can't get to a place where you think, no, I really think it is true, kids shouldn't lie, that's totally fine. So the next thought I like to go to, or the next question I like to go to is this useful? Is this helping me get to a place of parenting my child? If I'm thinking my child is a liar, is that helping me parent and teach my child the things I want to be teaching them? Probably not. So is it true? Is it useful? And then there are all kinds of other questions you can bring up. Is he going to learn something from this? What am I going to learn from this? One of my favorite thoughts, especially in instances where you have those shame thoughts coming up, like I'm the worst mother, is in what way does this make me a good mother? Let me give you an example of that. So there was a client who was very upset because her teenage son had come to her and said, "Hey, Mom, I've been looking at pornography." She was devastated. and had all the thoughts going up. And when we really dug down into it, one of the thoughts that made her the angriest and had that shame, right? That layering emotion of shame on top of it was, I'm the worst mother. If I was a good mother, my son wouldn't be looking at pornography. And so when we asked her, well, in what way does this make you a good mother? All of a sudden, the floodgates opened up and she realized her son had come to her and told her that he was having this issue. So many teenage boys are going to look at pornography, right? But how many of them are going to come to their mother and want to talk about it with their mother? So where she had been making it mean, man, I'm a terrible mother, we were able to turn it around and make her realize, oh my goodness, I'm actually a really great mother. In fact, I'm the perfect mother for my son in this moment. That's powerful.
Man, I wish I was that calm to think like that.
Just gotta process the emotion first, right? Like that's why it's so important to do that first step of just stopping, slowing down, and letting yourself be angry. Because you can't get to any of these other rational, this is all the stuff that I'm talking about now. This is all prefrontal cortex stuff that happens with that thinking part of your brain. And you can't get there when you are in the anger. So you've got to step away. You've got to feel the anger and just let it be there. And then it's after that's processed that you can get to these healthier places. And then when you're there, when you've looked at it objectively, when you've turned it around and played with it, then you can go to your kid and you can teach, right? I don't know any child who, after they've been yelled at. In fact, I was talking about this with my husband the other night. I'm trying to remember what he was yelling about. And listen, we all yell. Almost all parents, maybe not all of us. Most of us yell on occasion. We all lose it sometimes. It was something little, and yelling is probably an extreme word for it, but he was kind of getting on my kids. I think it was something like not putting their dishes in the dishwasher. I mean, something super simple. And we talked about how, for 20 years, my oldest daughter is 22. We've been kind of yelling at our kids, or at least nagging them to put the dishes in the dishwasher, put the dishes in the dishwasher, put the dishes in the dishwasher. It has not worked. Obviously our kids still do not put their dishes in the dishwasher, right? I still find myself doing it all the time. A better way is to make it a teaching moment, right? Take a time, not when the kids leave the dishes out. That's not the time to do it, but at a different time. When you're not upset about it, when you're not angry, when your kids are in a good mood, you can go and talk to them and be like, hey, let's talk about putting the dishes in the dishwasher. Why do we do that? Why is that important? What are ways that I could help you, or that you could remember that, right? And you can have a teaching moment and a discussion about it from an objective place.
Yeah, I think the key is when you're all calmed down. Yeah.
Right. And I think the really main key is, if I had to go back to one other thing, it's that everyone gets angry and it's okay. Nothing has gone wrong. Your kid is okay. You are okay. It doesn't make you a bad parent. Because if you layer on that shame and guilt of, I shouldn't be angry with my kid, it just makes you feel worse. And when you feel bad, you aren't going to be doing your best parenting. It's okay that you feel angry. Process that anger, feel the anger, let yourself be angry, and then go back and have that teaching moment.
Yeah. So in the hospital, like when somebody dies or whatever, or close to dies, we have something like a month later called a morbidity and mortality, where we go through what happened so that we can try not to let it happen again. Obviously not every time somebody dies, but an unexpected death or something that they've identified. So I always remind myself, like, we just need to have the M&M later on. And one of the things I like the most about the M&M is that everyone in that room is valued the same. So even if the tech comes up, who's just like the unit secretary and has something valid to say, her opinion is valued just as much as the doctor's, at least it should be.
I love that.
So
I love that.
I try and remind myself, we're all valued at the M&M, the same amount. Doesn't matter, even though I should be valued more. Just kidding.
Well, we always think that, right? Like our opinion maybe just gets like 125%, maybe.
Right. Well, because we own the room where the M&M is happening, we're more important.
One strategy that I actually love to use, we have a family meeting every week. And as part of that family meeting, we do something called problem solving. And you got to be really careful with this, because sometimes it can turn into complaining if you're not careful. But it's a great time to bring up these sorts of things in a really neutral space where, just like with your M&M, everybody can give their 2 cents. Well, mom, I have trouble putting the dishes in the dishwasher because of this. And everybody can help and problem solve as long as you're doing it from a positive space of how can we help instead of blaming, shaming, being upset, those sorts of things. It's a positive, cooperative problem solving situation. I love that.
Yeah.
So there are many other times you can do it. My dad used to like trap us in the car. So when he wanted to have a teaching moment, he would say, come get in the car, and he would drive me around for I don't know how long. He would just drive and drive and drive. That works too, right? You're going to have to find what works for your family. But finding those teaching moments when you can be calm, those are the money.
Yeah. And I also think, especially with teenagers, when you're like, they know a punishment or consequence is happening and you delay it, I think you've just 10 times that, right? Because in their mind, they're like, she's not going to let me be in the musical. She's going to take away the car. She's going to rip my arms off. I don't know what she's going to do. She's crazy.
And then when you come up with what it really is,
yeah, they're like, okay.
Softens the blow a little bit. They're like, all right, I deserve that. It's probably okay.
It's better than what I had in my mind, right?
Right.
I think that's so important to be okay with being angry and realizing that we tend to not see our friends like lose their minds at their kids. Although, I sort of love it when I see, you're at the park and somebody's kid's chucking sand for the 10th time at every other person's kid, and that mom just like loses her mind. I'm like, okay, good. I'm on par. Like we're all
in this together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, what you see on Instagram, what you usually see at the park, every once in a while you do have a moment like that, but you see your friends at their best. Usually everybody's on their best behavior. Your kids are on, not always, depending on their age. Once they get old enough to realize social consequences, they often are on their best behavior in front of other people. But I am telling you, I work with parents every single day. The parents that you think are perfect, that their family is this happy little family. Yeah, they're a happy family, and they get mad at their kids, and their kids do things wrong, right? And just remember, the only thing your kids should be doing is making mistakes, because your kid's job is to learn. And one of the best ways to learn is to mess it all up, right? When we learn to play the piano, I can't imagine going to a piano teacher who was like, oh, you better not make any mistakes. Just, you get it right the first time, every time. No, making mistakes is part of the process, getting it wrong over and over and over again. And sometimes it can feel frustrating when your child is making the same mistake over and over and over. Trust that it's part of the process. It's okay. It's okay to feel frustrated about it too, but also it's okay. And don't make it mean anything other than data gathering. I love this concept of data gathering. When my child is having trouble with something, I can get mad about it, or I can collect the data and say, okay, my kid is really having trouble with math. What do we need to do to help him? Right? That's a totally different place from, I can't believe you didn't study for your test. Why aren't you going in for coaching? Right? There's that place of anger, and we all go there sometimes. But when you can get to a place of data gathering, okay, my child just lied to me for the 57th time about taking the cookies from the cookie jar. There's clearly a lagging skill going on here. How do we address that? Right? There's nothing wrong with your kid. It doesn't matter if they've made the same mistake 50 times. There's nothing wrong with them. They're learning. So use it as data. Okay, this is clearly something we need to work a little more on. Maybe I can ask them a few more questions, drill in a little bit, like what's going on? What is causing this behavior?
Yeah, I like that. I was just thinking like your kid's kind of like under warranty in the beginning, especially once you have kids leave the house. You want the problems really while you're there and can like soften the blow and, have a credit card and those kind of things. Like when you get a new car, you're kind of like, okay, let all the bad stuff happen in this first year so that I can just take it into the dealership and have them fix it when they're responsible rather than. And the same is when they leave, like you're like, it's probably good they've like had an accident or dealt with insurance before they're an adult so that they know how to deal with that later on, those type of things. So
exactly. Your job is to raise people who they start out literally knowing nothing. And all the things that you take for granted, well, of course, right? Things that seem so logical. Of course, you would do it this way. They really don't know how to do it that way. And your job is to teach. And it's okay to get frustrated with the teaching process sometimes, but just remember, nothing has gone wrong. That's one of my favorite thoughts too. Every time my kid does something that makes me super angry, because it happens, and I can know all of this and still get super angry because I'm a human with a human brain. And I love to just tell myself, nothing has gone wrong. This is happening exactly the way it's supposed to be happening. And this is the path that they are choosing to learn this lesson that they've got to learn. And yes, so much better that it happens when they're with me and I can teach than when they're on their own and when the stakes get bigger.
Yeah. Or you're on vacation. Because that's where I'm going to be when they're all grown.
Oh, you lucky lady.
When they're all grown, right?
Oh, when they're all grown. Yes. Well, constantly.
I'll be on a vacation.
One long vacation.
Yeah, but I deserve that. Okay, this was awesome. Hopefully people learn no matter what area you're in your life. And even if you're like with a newborn, it's almost the same thing because you can get super angry with that baby that will not stop crying. So normal. And the same thing, you have to just walk away. Put them in their safe place. Go put the Enya on. Go take a shower if it's really bad. Crying means they're alive.
And you know, it's so trite, but you really, it's trite because it is so accurate. You've got to put your own oxygen mask on first. You've got to take care of yourself and get yourself in the place where you can parent from a healthy place. And with a newborn that's crying all the time, same thing. That baby will be just fine in their crib, right? Walk away, take care of yourself.
Yeah. Maybe they'll even go to sleep.
Maybe they will. That actually happens a lot.
With a teenager, I can verify they will go to sleep if you leave them in their room long enough. Well, an older teen.
Yeah, mine for sure. I definitely have some sleepers in my family.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Susie.
Thanks, Hillary.
Okay, guys, I hope you liked that episode. Again, being angry is so normal. And sometimes, because I love to yell, I'll just yell, I am so angry. Right? Because that's like saying something, it's an I statement. So I think it's a little bit safer than you are so dumb, which is what I really want to yell sometimes. Like if you want to yell, because I think it's important for our kids to know how we're dealing with those types of emotions. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Susie does in fact have openings. You can check her out. I'll leave all of her links in the show notes. But if you look up Susie Lindberg on Instagram, you can find her there. I think that's the easiest place to find her. And then you can find her website through there. Do not miss next week's episode. We are talking about testing with the ultrasound. Last week we talked about just like normal ultrasounds, but this time we're going to talk about like what we look for. And the week after that, I'm talking about how I got my entire family to clean my house with me. I mean, goldmine, right? Thanks so much for joining us on today's episode. We know you have lots of options for your ears, and we are glad that you chose us. We drop episodes weekly, and until next time, we hope you have a tangle-free day.